Hello, I'm Ezra Miller, the God.
More details are emerging following actor Ezra Miller's arrest on the Big Island.
I'm not transgender, non-binary. I don't want to be searched by a man. I'm transgender, non-binary, and I don't want to be searched by a man. I claim my Fourth Amendment rights to deny search and seizure. These are Nerf guns, just in case you worry that they're bullets. Those are Nerf bullets.
Thank you for letting
They
me.
are fake and they are a toy. Please don't take them from me. The flash ring means a lot to me.
The Flash actor, Ezra Miller, has been arrested again.
People always
Hi.
can always just knock you out, and then you won't have to panic.
Right, you just gotta knock
You just
people
let me
out.
know.
Yeah.
No? Yes?
What? Whoa, bro.
Today, I want to talk about Ezra Miller. Oh my God. Oh, actually appropriate. This is much worse than I thought. Ezra Miller goes by they, them pronouns. The way I speak grammatically is already a little iffy. And now I'm adding this to it. So please bear with me. I might make some mistakes. The whole thing got back on my radar when I saw that very recently Ezra was attempting a comeback.
Tentative. I'd say on tentative grounds.
And apparently there's a new movie that Ezra is working on that should be coming out maybe in 2026. Who knows? Many people have called Ezra like a mini Diddy, a mini R. Kelly situation. It's very much giving those vibes. And I'm shocked that the comeback is even a thing once you hear what I'm going to tell you. Okay. Also, allegedly, because, allegedly. Ezra Miller, the Hollywood star of The Flash, as well as Fantastic Beasts, considered by many to be an A-lister, up-and-coming major star, was also very much at the time a queer icon. The fact that they're attempting a comeback is shocking because under the comments of the videos I saw about the comeback, the fan base was really happy, talking about, oh, it's really good to see that they're doing well and that Hollywood was really did a number on them, and basically blaming Hollywood and mental illness, which I'm sure played a part. But once you see the details, you will realize that the very things you don't like about Hollywood are the very things that Ezra is accused of doing by multiple people. So seems like Ezra's the perpetrator. But again, as usual, what I do on my channel, I'm going to give you guys the facts and then you can decide for yourself what you think. Ezra was born and raised in Wyckoff, New Jersey. This is also, I guess, where the Jonas brothers were from. Ezra grew up with a family that was very artistic. Ezra's father was a book publisher named Robert Miller. Ezra's mother, Marta Miller, she is a modern dancer, and according to Ezra, she is a mystic and a sage as well. Ezra grew up in the family's country house in Vermont. When Ezra was 6 years old, Ezra had a speech impediment. So to overcome the speech impediment, Ezra was enrolled in opera singing and trained as an opera singer from the age of 6 and actually joined the Metropolitan Opera. There's a story Ezra tells about being told to do a book report in the first grade. Ezra says, I brought a big stuffed animal dog and I covered it in blood. I made a tape recording and I hooked up the play button of the tape recorder to the dog's paw. The idea was that you'd push the paw and you'd hear out of the voice of this bloody stuffed dog my dramatic reading of Cujo. I was really excited. I thought it was going to be on the class wall of fame for the rest of the year. And then the teacher very politely said, Ezra, we're going to put this in the closet until the end of the day, and then you're going to have to take it home. When Ezra was 16, they dropped out of high school and with the parents moved to Hoboken, where Ezra would take the subway to Manhattan to go on auditions. And that is how Ezra got their first break, which was when Ezra was 17 years old in Lynn Ramsey's movie called We Need to Talk About Kevin. Lynn Ramsey is who Ezra might be making a comeback with. So this is the first major director that Ezra worked with. In this movie, We Need to Talk About Kevin, Kevin basically plays this deranged kid that kills his classmates with this bow and arrow. And the bow and arrow is going to come back in the story later because Ezra actually kept the bow and arrow, and in a lot of interviews would offer to show it to the reporters, the exact bow and arrow from the movie. And then when all of Ezra's guns and flamethrowers were like taken away from Ezra, the bow and arrow became the only weapon. Anyway, it's a whole thing. I'm getting sidetracked, but that was his first movie. Damn, talk about a sidetrack. A year after this is when Ezra starred in The Perks of a Wallflower. Yeah, so it's actually called The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which was a big, big hit. This is considered his true breakout role, and Emma Watson was in this movie as well. When Ezra got the script, Ezra says, "I picked it up and threw it against the wall. Then I kicked it and spat on it because I was furious that somebody, some idiot somewhere, was trying to ruin a great piece of literature." Turned out that the screenplay was written by the author of the book. So, yeah. In 2012, Ezra came out publicly as queer. Ezra goes mainstream, starring in The Flash, as well as Fantastic Beasts. During the interviews that Ezra would do promoting all of these movies, this sort of quirky character started to emerge, and it seemed harmless at first. Like, for example, he talked about how he could feel the energy of cell phones. And this is what he said. He said, "I find the presence of cell phones bad for my mood. I can feel cell phones when they're around." Ezra spoke in gibberish to reporters at Comic-Con while wearing silk lingerie as a sexy Super Mario Brothers character. Okay, so this is when it stops being funny and it starts to become actually a problem. And this is when Ezra in 2016 meets a 12-year-old indigenous activist named Tokata Iron Eyes. And she was 12 and he was 23. There were a lot of protests and things that were going on at this time against the Dakota Access Pipeline. And these protests were going on in Standing Rock, and Ezra was participating in these protests as well as other actors at the time. And there were rumors that Ezra was dating Shailene Woodley. She was also participating in these protests, as well as the actor Mark Ruffalo. But Ezra had to take it to the extreme. Ezra continued to contact Takata. Takata's parents say Ezra would show up unannounced at the home. Ezra took an interest in Takata's interests. When Takata said she was interested in making music, Ezra said, "I'm in a band, I can help you with that." When Takata said that she was a huge Harry Potter fan, Ezra was like, "I'm doing the Fantastic Beasts movie. I'm going to fly you out to go to the premiere." And in the beginning, Takata's parents thought that he was just like all the other celebrities who were there to help. And so they thought it was pretty innocent in the beginning. But Dakota's parents would end up filing a restraining order against Ezra with some of the craziest allegations, saying that they were caught in bed together doing you know what when she was only 14, which at that point it's statutory you know what, that Ezra was grooming her and brainwashing her and all of this stuff. Also, by 2017 is when Ezra gets the mountain, which is the name for the 96-acre farm that Ezra owns in Vermont. This is where a lot of the crazy cult shit goes down, at least in the US anyway, other than Hawaii and Iceland and pretty much actually everywhere is there's cult stuff. But anyway, this is also where you see this hypocrisy that Ezra has, where Ezra will basically have no self-awareness. Ezra goes on this tirade that is very similar to what Ezra ends up doing. So this is the tirade. Ezra says, "Don't call us fucking hippies. Instead, I'm a lifelong living with the earth freak. Hippies were white people who, came from privilege at a time of a lot of important movements and took a lot of drugs and made a lot of noise, which drowned out the very valid sound that was being made by a lot of really important movements at the time." He sighs. "And then they all sold out and became our parents." As you will see, this is exactly what Ezra does. Ezra took advantage of a lot of movements and would use many things, the non-binary thing, the appropriation, like pretty much every issue. He started to get upset about Native American issues because he was being inappropriate with a Native American minor. So apparently that made him the authority on the issue. Like, you went to Standing Rock to start inappropriate relationships with a minor. And you'll see later when he gets mad at this woman for whose other minor child, who's 11, Ezra was inappropriately talking to, according to the mom, gets mad at her for using the word tribe to talk about her friends, saying that that's cultural appropriation and yelling and screaming. So it's like there's no self-awareness. Anyway, so back to the mountain in Vermont. This is what they would do there. They would play Call of Duty, they would practice chaos magic, and they would smoke a lot of weed. And there was also this shrine or altar that was essentially figurines of the Flash that were their deities. And people who came would have to give offerings to these figurines of Flash. And sometimes that would include the fact, remember, Ezra doesn't like cell phones, can feel cell phones. So when you came over, you would have to offer your cell phone at the altar to the Flash figurine deity while you were there as a show of respect. Okay. And then once you were there without your phone to distract you, you would have to endure these long monologues, rambling rantings, essentially, of Ezra talking about how amazing Ezra is and mystical and magical. So their like deity was his fictional DC character, the Flash. And they would offer all kinds of things like weed and cell phones and stuff to his Flash altar figurine deity. So, and now all of a sudden, people are noticing that there is a teenager, a young teenager named Dakota Iron Eyes, who's attached at the hip with Ezra all of a sudden out of nowhere. And this freaking weird ass story of who they are, according to the person there, they said that, quote, Ezra is Jesus and Tokata's an apocalyptic Native American spider goddess, and their union is supposed to bring about the apocalypse. And that's the real reason everyone is opposed to them being together. It has nothing to do with the fact that she was 12 and you were 23. No, it has to do that she's the spider goddess and you're Jesus, and you're bringing back the apocalypse. Okay, your union is gonna bring the apocalypse. Great. Crazy ass motherfucking shit. Other offerings to be given to the Flash figurines are weed, bullets, sage, and yes, the cell phones. Oh, and then the freaking Susan Sarandon thing. Okay, this is freaking crazy. So this is so embarrassing for Ezra because according to Ezra's friend, they say that Ezra freaked out recently, demanding that Susan Sarandon come pay tribute to his altar because she didn't invite Ezra to a dinner party. According to Ezra's publicist, Ezra and Susan are, quote, dear friends. Susan Sarandon's representative did not respond. So that tells you all you need to know there. The Susan Sarandon, like, come to my altar of my Flash figurines because she didn't invite you. I think the fact that she didn't invite you to the dinner party, you should have just let it go after that, okay? Anywho, so let's talk about the polycule. Okay, this is the word of the day today is polycule. Have you heard of this word? I didn't until I was researching this video. Apparently, a polycule is a portmanteau of polyamorous and molecule. A polyamorous molecule, aka a polycule. Ezra said that they were in a polycule. This is during an interview with Playboy magazine, and Ezra said that they created a free love environment for themselves. My understanding is a polycule is kind of like it's like polyamory. It's where you could have a throuple or, maybe a quadruple or a quintuple, more than two people in a couple, or maybe not even a couple in a polycule. You know what I mean? So something like this. Maybe there's no monogamy within the group, but there is some sort of tie to where they are defined together. I'm not quite sure. But according to people who were there and know Ezra, they say it's not a polycule and that they actually don't have any problem with polyamory, but that it's actually, quote, a court harem of mostly young women. They say an openly polyamorous lifestyle, that's not inherently wrong to me. But in this situation, it's actually a patriarchal dictatorship where Ezra controls all the sex as the man and then plays the women against each other, screams at them, and then belittles them in front of others. Is it patriarchal? I always want to say patriarchal, but when I look at the spelling, there's no extra cuckle. There are so many quotes I found of Ezra basically going on about women's empowerment and men taking advantage, like basically railing against this patriarchy. So Ezra says, powerful men, they don't know how bad they want to submit to a woman, a feminine power, but they should. I advise they do it immediately because they're effing up the world. Lo and behold, behind closed doors, it's not this sort of polycule free love thing. It's a harem where the man is in charge, and the women are young, so there's power dynamics and pitting the women against each other. I mean, this is classic patriarchy bullshit. One of Ezra's friends, who's also queer, says, to me, those are clear instances of manipulation where it's like, are you really queer? Or is that just a fun way to marginalize yourself so that you can be even shittier to others? So now let's talk about the violence, because there's a lot of stuff here with guns. Vermont is an open carry state. They have really lax gun laws, and a lot of people believe that is why Ezra made the home base in Vermont. Also, remember, Ezra's from Vermont, so it could also be that. Ezra is not a responsible gun owner, according to the people around Ezra. For example, Ezra would burn sage inside the barrel of an AR-15 and wave it around while singing and dancing. Shit like this is what I'm talking about. We'll talk about later instances where there's children, very young children, like under the age of 5, that are around, putting bullets in their mouths, guns around. The marijuana use was around minors, and not just around them, but like wafting and blowing the smoke in the direction of the children, like shit like this, where now you're taking things that people should do responsibly if they want to as adults, such as own guns or smoke marijuana. If that's what you want to do, it's legal, up to you. But now you're like wafting it in the kid's face and putting the guns in the boots. Like, you're the reason why there are all these stringent laws, because you idiots don't know how to act around shit that we should be able to have access to as responsible adults, is just my personal opinion. That was in 2019. In the beginning of 2020, February 2020, is when Ezra went to London to start filming for Fantastic Beasts. But what happened? COVID. And they were shutdowns. Once COVID hit and filming was halted, Ezra decided to go to Iceland. Okay, I think my voice cracked just there. Iceland. Say it with your chest. And this is where the shit really gets crazy, because he essentially starts a cult out of an Airbnb in Reykjavik. Naturally, all the locals noticed this barefoot person. Shit, already I'm fucking up with the whole thing. The locals started to notice this person that they said had a putrid stench. This is a common recurring theme, by the way, this putrid stench that Ezra has, and that Ezra was commonly seen wearing the same clothes, mumbling to nobody, speaking in gibberish. Quote, the actor was aggressive and emitted a putrid stench. They said the actor, who rarely changed out of the same loosely fitting bohemian clothing, strolled the frigid streets of Reykjavik barefoot, revealing long pointy toenails and what looked like an infected gash on one foot, 3 people said. Along with Ezra's putrid stench and pointy toenails was also Ezra's very good spiritual advisor / friend, Jasper Youngbear, who's a 55-year-old from North Dakota, a medicine man that would tag along with Ezra. It appears as though Ezra and Jasper were essentially running a cult out of this Airbnb. They were both very large personalities. For example, Jasper Youngbear told locals in Iceland that he had actually cut off his fingers during a spiritual ceremony, and that's why he had fingers missing. The thing is that Ezra already was, crazy. And so when Jasper joined, Jasper only fed Ezra's delusions. Jasper would tell Ezra things like, you're not part of a movement, you are the movement. And Jasper would refer to Ezra as the Messiah, and that the Freemasons were sending demons out to kill him. The thing with this cult at the Airbnb is that at the end of the day, it really would not have been a problem if they were doing all of this, if it wasn't for 2 things: targeting of minors, and also physical violence that would occur. The way that Ezra would approach these minors is always like as a mentor, as someone who could help with their career, someone who saw something in them. A lot of times these minors were also non-binary or sort of struggling with their gender identity, or maybe they weren't struggling with it, but they didn't feel accepted where they were with their parents, with their community. And so here's Ezra, who's also non-binary, who's this famous actor, and would take an interest in this teenager, or sometimes preteens. We're talking 10, 11 years old, 12 years old, and be like, you have amazing style, or you could be a musician, or I could get you studio time. The other thing is that Ezra was very generous. And the people who are around him, okay, let's be honest here, they all wanted to party. A lot of what this was about was partying. He had weed, drugs, alcohol, all kinds of stuff. And they just kind of gave it a little bit of a spiritual twist. So they would all be getting basically high, and he would go on these monologues, or they would go on these monologues, and everyone there would just sit there and listen because they were like, okay, just pass the weed and this will go over quick. Although all the locals in Iceland were like talking about the fact that this famous Hollywood actor was at this Airbnb running a cult, nobody really knew about it other than the people in Iceland until this video went viral of him choking a woman in Iceland.
Did you want to fight? Is that the deal?
Whoa, bro.
Fight?
After the video went viral, a lot of people were kind of speculating what was really going on. A lot of Ezra's fans were defending Ezra, being like, no, this is clearly a joke, blah, 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 all that. But then they started looking into it, like the media went to Iceland, started interviewing people at this bar, the woman in the video, and they got a totally different story, that this was actually not a joke, that it started off as a joke where they were at this bar, and the woman who got choked said that she made a comment about Ezra's toes. According to this woman, who wanted to remain anonymous, as well as 3 other people at the bar who confirmed the story, this is how it went down. Ezra was wearing flip-flops, and as we know, his feet, they're very mangled and, wounded sort of feet. And so she commented, they were all drunk, by the way, so that's a big part of this, I think. She asked what was wrong with his feet. He said that they were, quote, battle scars from a fight. So they talked a little bit about that, and then the woman started walking away, and then she says that as a joke, she turned back around and she said, quote, but just so you know, I could take you in a fight. To which Ezra replied, you really want to fight? And so she responded to him and she said, meet me in the smoking area in 2 minutes. But she says that she was smiling and joking, and she thought it was very clear that they were joking and just like having banter. So this is her quote. She says, I think it's just fun and games, but then it wasn't. All of a sudden, they're on top of me, choking me, still screaming in my face if I want to fight. My friend who's filming sees that they're obviously not joking and it's actually serious. So he stops filming, pushes them off me, and they're still trying to fight me. 2 guy friends of mine are actually holding Ezra back as they're screaming, this is what you wanted, this is what you wanted. Making matters worse, apparently, according to several witnesses, after they took Ezra Miller off of the woman, he started spitting on them, which at this time, remember, this is in the spring of 2020 with the pandemic fears were at fever pitch. This was, kind of a big deal to spit. I mean, it's, in my opinion, always a big deal to spit in someone's face. Like, what the hell, dude? That's nasty, rude, disrespectful, and I'm pretty sure illegal. But during the pandemic, it had a little extra heat to it. You know what I mean? Once they kicked him out, they say he wouldn't leave. And that's the thing with him. There are several instances here where he gets kicked out of places, a person's house, a bar, whatever. And it's like he cannot take no for an answer, which is very important here when we talk about different things that he does, is that he just refuses to take no for an answer and will just escalate farther and farther. So they said that he started running around the bar, trying to get from the front entrance to the back entrance. And they say he ran along the perimeter of the building, banging on the door and screaming to be let in. They wouldn't let him in. Bystanders also overheard him immediately after all this went down get on the phone and talk to Warner Brothers, the studio. They say that he was telling these executives at Warner Brothers that he was the one being attacked, he was the one being hated on, basically doing damage control immediately after. And the reason why I bring this up is because when people talk about his mental health and he didn't know what he was doing and if it was wrong, to me, this is what they call consciousness of guilt, right? Is that the phrase? This is, to me, someone who knows, okay, shit, they're filming. This is not a good look. This could affect my job. Let me preemptively do damage control before they find out about it and call the studios and tell them I got attacked. So then when this video comes up, they already have this backstory that I told them at the time. That to me is someone who's at least has enough wits about them to know that what they did is wrong and looks bad. It's not just, oh God, I don't know what's going on. Wait, what happened? No. So that makes it sinister to me. That makes it not as excusable and forgivable to me. Okay, so anyway, They say eventually he was taken, ushered into a car and whisked away back to his cult and Airbnb cult commune thing. So the woman who was choked, she reported the incident, but she didn't want to press charges. And they basically banned him from this bar. But then they say he came back again later with a stuffed animal, like as a peace offering. From there, he ends up moving from that Airbnb to this hotel. And he moved to that hotel to record music. They have like a music studio. And so he's doing that. And now he's bringing more people over, not to his Airbnb this time, but to his hotel room. And in the hotel room, it's way more intense. It's way more aggressive because they don't have this big space to get away from each other. And he's going on these benders with these people for days on end where they're just in the hotel room and things get crazy. So here's an example. This is an 18-year-old girl. She says that when she got there, it was fine. For the first day, she said, all we did, we recited pagan chants, we smoked weed, and we chilled in the hot tub. Then she had a threesome with him and this other girl, and she claims that all of this was fine and dandy. It started to get weird when she feels like he started to basically like psychologically manipulate her and try to make her feel like this is it now, just leave everything behind and stay in this hotel room with me forever, and I'll do everything. I'll get you a career in Hollywood and whatever. Like she started to feel like, wait, am I ever going to leave here? So she says also that he would have these very intense mood swings. So this is the quote. She says, at one moment, they would look me in the eye and be like, I love you, and be this really nice, beautiful person. And the next minute, they would tell me that I was fucking disgusting. Like when this one woman, she said that she mixed up the Spanish words for 6 and 7. And she kind of was like laughing it off and leaning on Ezra, like, like, oh, I made a mistake. And Ezra was like, get the fuck off of me. And that this mistake she made was disgusting. Then there's another incident where they say they started to do yoga in the room. And Ezra got so upset and he started screaming, you don't know anything about yoga. In 2021, something happens. And there's this photo with Ezra wearing a ski mask. And then in this photo, according to Chief Bearcross, Ezra unexpectedly started brandishing that firearm and was it's like very erratic and freaking people out. They never knew like what could set him off. The way that they started staying with Chief Bearcross is that Dakota ended up dropping out of school. She dropped out of school and she asked Chief Bearcross if she could stay with him in South Dakota for a few days. And he says that when she came, he was surprised that she had 4 people with her, including this guy in his 50s called Whitney Suiters, who was carrying firearms, as well as Ezra. They say Ezra would refuse to let Tokata out of their sight, to the point where everyone was noticing like, okay, that's really weird. And then this is where the crazy shit happened. He said at one point they saw them together having sex outside on a bed, and it was Ezra with Dakota, and at this point Dakota is 14 and Ezra is in his like late 20s. The household member said she saw Miller having sex with Tokata on a bed outside. It was dark, but there's a yard light, she said. Bearcross said the household member told him about this incident immediately after it happened. Tokata told Insider this was so very false. They ended up leaving the reservation on New Year's Day and they go on this road trip to LA. During this road trip, the shit is super crazy because Tokata and Ezra are basically like homeless in a sense, where they're camping at state parks and things like that. Ezra is not providing her with her basic needs apparently at this point, also doing crazy things like brandishing weapons and being very erratic, wearing a Kevlar vest and saying the FBI is out to get him. By the end of January, things are escalating and it's going to be really, really bad. So in addition to Ezra believing that the FBI were out to get him, he also was saying that the Ku Klux Klan was out to get him as well. And so on January 27th, he posted this video on Instagram, but he deleted it. But there are articles that talk about it. They say that he said that this was for the Beulahville chapter of the North Carolina Ku Klux Klan. He said, look, if y'all want to die, I suggest just killing yourselves with your own guns, okay? Otherwise, keep doing exactly what you're doing right now, and you know what I am talking about. And then, we'll do it for you if that's what you really want. And in the caption, he wrote, this is not a joke. And even though I do recognize myself to be a clown, Please trust me and take this seriously. On January 29th is when Ezra calls Tokata's parents to tell them that she's incapacitated from an LSD overdose. So they end up getting on this flight, her parents, and showing up the next day. And they say that, quote, when they arrived, she was out of it and incoherent and screaming so relentlessly that she lost her voice for several days. She had bruises on her arms and left cheek, and she didn't have her phone or her ID. Other people who were on that farm told Tokata's parents that the reason why she had those bruises were because Ezra gave her those bruises, that Ezra pinned her down because she was not answering him when Ezra was asking questions. And then later on, when Takata did interviews and was asked about those bruises and stuff, she said she did it to herself because she was very upset that a friend of hers had passed away and Ezra had nothing to do with that. Takata also told media that it was a microdose of LSD that she took. Like, this is the thing you're going to see with Takata in all the interviews that she did. She said that it was her parents who were the bad ones, Ezra being the good person, that Ezra is being vilified and everything is not true. And so she'll either take responsibility for some of the things Ezra's accused of, or she'll blame it on her parents. But Ezra's always the good guy in the situation. Keep in mind, he is doing this while he's claiming that he's Takata's guardian. And they say that Takata went without basic needs such as shelter, underwear, socks, money, ID, phone. Takata's parents, they say that Ezra's mom, Marta, knew that Ezra had taken her phone, taken her belongings, and that she didn't do anything about it. And so they feel like that's not cool, man. After Takata's overdose, her parents took her. Okay. She stayed with them and they got her a phone, ID, these things that she didn't have when she was with Ezra. And they did some type of healing ceremonies and stuff. Now, Takata says that they cut her hair off and burnt her hair and made her inhale the smoke, and it was awful. And they were dragging her and they were just being so awful with her. Her parents deny that. So I don't know. But according to Takata, it was awful there with her parents for those 3 weeks. Meanwhile, Ezra's like totally spiraling out of control while all this is going on. One of Ezra's ex-friends described what it's like being in a relationship with Ezra, and they said, quote, it's like you're in a non-consensual emotional BDSM relationship with Ezra. And then another person, when they were asked if they ever saw any altercations involving Ezra Miller, they said every interaction with Ezra is an altercation. Ezra goes to Massachusetts, and during this trip to Massachusetts, Ezra meets this woman who has an 11-year-old child who identifies as non binary. Now, here again, Ezra is meeting another minor, this time 11. And this minor identifies as non binary. And so Ezra's like, perfect. The mother knew one of the people who was with Ezra, and that's how they all knew each other. And so they ended up hanging out. And Ezra is like laser focused on this 11-year-old kid. She said, the actor showed an inappropriate interest in her 11-year-old. She said Miller complimented the child's style and maturity level, major red flag, and asked whether they were interested in starting a clothing line together. Miller also offered to pay for the child to attend design school. I want to invest in your future. I want to make you somebody, the now 12-year-old recalled Miller telling them. They also said that Miller asked for their Instagram handle. Ezra then also started having these like aggressive outbursts towards the mom. She said that she had this goth style, and so she started joking around, saying that she always looks like a vampire. And Ezra starts screaming, pulls their shirt down to expose their jugular, and starts yelling at the top of their lungs, quote, do you want to drink my blood? Then another time she said that her group of friends were her tribe. And she says that Ezra blew up and being like, this is completely offensive and cultural appropriation for her to use the word tribe when it's not a real Native American tribe. Then Ezra started yelling and saying that this child of hers is a mystical being who is more powerful than her. That was just the first night they met. The next day, she says that she sees Ezra at this musical festival where Ezra apologizes for the outburst. Also in February of 2022 is this crazy incident that happens in Berlin with Nadia. So this is a woman who said that she only wanted to be referred to as Nadia. She says that in 2020, she had consensual sex with Ezra and they were keeping in touch through text message. They would make all these plans to meet up, but it would always fall through. And so in February of 2022, when Ezra texted her being like, I'm coming to Berlin for one night, I have nowhere to stay. Can I stay with you? She was like, sure. She was happy, finally we can actually link up. She says that at first Ezra was totally polite, even when she said, that in her home they don't wear shoes inside. Ezra took off their shoes. But when it all switched and went to shit is when Ezra started rolling a cigarette, tobacco, like hand-rolled cigarette. And Nadia said, oh, you can't smoke that inside. We'll have to go to the balcony or outside. And she said this set Ezra off. She said, and this I'm quoting word for word, they started with, I'm a maker of planets, tobacco is sacred. She says, I asked him to leave about 20 times, maybe more. They started insulting me. I'm a transphobic piece of shit. I'm a Nazi. It became so stressful for me. They were going around my house, looking at everything, touching everything, spreading tobacco leaves on the floor. It felt disgusting and very intrusive. I asked them if they remember. I told them I'm a descendant of Holocaust survivors. So why would they say that to me? She says, they answered screaming at me, yes, but how many people of my family died? Because many people in their family died. I was like, oh, okay, this is a game of who's got the most trauma. She says Ezra continued on this quote tirade. She said that they said that they could do whatever they want. And she said, okay, you've got to go now. And that Ezra looked at me with this really mean, stern face and told me, sit down, like they were ordering a dog. So she says she told him, what, you're going to talk to me like I'm a dog? And she said that he said, yes, I'm talking to you like a dog. And she said, okay, if you talk to me like this, it's time for you to go. The only thing I said to him was, leave my house, go away, leave. Can you leave now? She said, like a broken record for over half an hour. She was just only repeating, leave, go, leave my house, go. And he would not. She said after like 45 minutes, she just couldn't take it anymore. And so she called the police and she let Ezra know she was calling the police, at which point she says Ezra also grabbed the phone and was calling the police as well, or she says maybe was pretending to call the police. She's not sure. Then Ezra started going into her bedroom. She says they started to shout that they were an R-word survivor and that I was triggering them. They started to say that I had assaulted them, I had beat them up, and that I had hurt them. Then she started wondering out loud, I wonder why the police aren't here. The police should be here by now. How come the police aren't here? And that sort of like snapped Ezra out of it. And Ezra started grabbing their things and left her apartment. And so she actually thought it was over, to the point where she called the cops and was like, you know what? Problems solved, no need to come. Well, it wasn't, and they definitely should have come, because she said, I thought it was over, but it was not. 30 minutes later, all of a sudden, she starts hearing banging and screaming, banging and screaming. She looks down and she sees Ezra's back, and Ezra is saying that they need their passport and their wallet. And so she looks around and she realizes, oh yeah, that in fact, Ezra has left the passport and the wallet. So she grabs the remaining items and she throws them out of the window for Ezra, hoping like, okay, now you've got your stuff. Will you leave? No, Ezra will not leave. Remember, Ezra does not like to be told no. Eventually, after ignoring Ezra, Ezra leaves and she ends up filing a complaint, a criminal complaint. But Ezra left Germany. The German prosecutor's office, they basically said that, they stopped the proceedings after Ezra left the country, because it's not like that huge of a crime that they're going to turn this to Interpol or something like that. So Ezra is now back in Vermont again, and things are going to escalate. Things were getting worse because Ezra was getting worse, and then the fascination with firearms was getting worse. So this crazy thing happens, okay? And this is according to 4 people who were there when this went down. They say that the gun situation with Ezra had gotten so bad that his mother, who's actually a major enabler of his, was starting to become concerned. And so she decided to lock up all the guns in this gun safe and change the lock and like not give Ezra the code. So he didn't have access to the firearms, but he did have the bow and arrow, the one that he used in the film. When 2 friends checked in on Miller later, the scene was pitiful. Says one, we got there and there was a big bow and arrow cocked on the table facing the floor. Ezra was lying face down on the floor. The house was empty. There was always people in the house and there was just nobody there but Ezra, sort of drunk, alone with a bow and arrow because the other people had taken the guns and locked them away, and Ezra was freaking out about it. The creepy thing is that in the movie that he starred in, we need to talk about Kevin, his character actually uses that very same bow and arrow to kill the classmates in the movie. Also around this time, he started doing this weird thing where whenever there were people around him, he would start calling other people on speakerphone in front of the people that were with him and fire them. Okay. And they say he fired every single person, starting from business people, his parents, just every single person one by one, says someone who was present. They say that Miller seemed to enjoy the calls. He'd kind of start giggling after the person would start crying or something. Talk about sadistic. Another recurring theme with Ezra that I saw in making this video is that he always gets away with everything and he always ends up getting his way because after all of that, right, they say that two of his longtime friends came to visit and he convinced them to give him the safe password to the gun safe and get the guns out. And they say that basically there was a flamethrower and all these huge AK-47s lying around. There were just guns everywhere. There are many instances of people saying that Ezra's behavior on set was unacceptable. People would say, first of all, the pungent body odor and the putrid smell. These are two words that are constantly coming up with regards to Ezra's BO. And then they say that Ezra was very rude, that Ezra would scream and spit and interrupt other people during filming, and that Ezra would yell erratically on the set just to get a reaction from people. And then Ezra was saying, they say inappropriate and offensive jokes. So this one is weird because I'm like, where's the joke? Like a joke's supposed to be funny. Like, where's even the punchline? But apparently this is what they say. They say that at one point, just before the camera started rolling, Ezra screamed out an offensive joke. It was something to the effect of a Jew, a black man, and a gay man walk into a bar, and the bartender said, "Hey, what are you doing here? You don't belong here." I'm like, what's the punchline here? The mechanics of the where is the punchline? You don't belong here? What are you doing here? I don't understand. How is this even a joke? It's bad enough when someone tells a bad fucked up joke, but when it's not even a joke or it's not even funny, it's like if I don't even feel bad for laughing because I didn't laugh, like please shut the fuck up. Now you're just an asshole racist and nobody cares. Like stop talking. Now it's the spring of 2022. Tokata is 18 years old. She started contacting Ezra again. And she would eventually lie to her parents and say she was going somewhere, and they let her go because they didn't want to be too tight. You know, they were trying to show her that they trust her and repair the relationship and all of this. But she ends up going right back to Ezra. Ezra's been spiraling. She says she's been having this awful time at her parents' house. And so now they end up meeting each other again. And in the spring of 2022, Takata and Ezra go to Hawaii. And this is going to be a whole other shit show. In Hawaii, they were basically in their polycule in polyester tents, living as drifters. And they end up meeting this other polyamorous group. And Ezra buys the male who had several wives. It's a polygamous couple where it's one man and several women. He had like 4 wives. And they start living together in this tent. And Ezra takes the male shopping and buys him this $1,000 ring. And while they're shopping and he's buying him the ring, he tells this man that he wants to partner with him and bring their polyamorous relationships together to create this even larger polycule, a multicule verse, amory, culery together. And so the guy's like, okay, what ends up actually going to happen is that Ezra's going to steal his wife and the kids and take her back to Vermont. And then that's going to end up being a crazy ass situation. And then the dad's going to end up calling child service. Like it's actually wild. But at this time, they're all polyculing together and things seem great. And this is going to be where Ezra gets, arrested a bunch of times. I'm just going to act like I didn't do that and then have more of what caused that. Which brings us to the arrests in Hawaii, because this is the end of March of 2022 now, and Ezra gets arrested at a karaoke bar. Ezra apparently was spitting in patrons' faces, yelling profanities, and then this woman was singing karaoke to Shallow from A Star is Born, and Ezra got very upset about that, grabbed the microphone, threw it away, and so the police were called, and then the body cam footage happened.
What's going on?
I don't know. I guess they were singing a song, and then he got triggered for some reason. He's Ezra Miller, movie star.
I film myself when I get assaulted for NFT crypto art. What's your name? What's your badge number? Tell me your name and your badge number.
White key.
Ezra.
Full name, full badge number. Tell me your name and your badge
White
number.
key
now.
136.
Instagram Live, my fans. Here are the pops of Hawaii.
Ezra, come. Let's talk stories then.
I don't want to. Thanks. I don't talk story with cops. I'm being arrested for disorderly conduct.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not
officer.
sorry. You could have took
I'm
anything
sorry.
real quick. But
I'm
no,
sorry.
you wanted to play the game.
I was
and now-
complying.
Well, you wasn't complying.
I was. You said get off the road. I got off the road.
No, you didn't.
Getting arrested for
He
spit in somebody's face.
The guy in that bar declared himself as a Nazi. I have it on film, and he attacked me.
Okay, so
He apologized for not calling the cops on the bigots who attacked me, and he offered me to come on a Sunday when he's here so that I could have a drink. And then one of the guys who was here from 2 weeks ago assaulted me again. That's the whole story. I have nothing more to say. Thank you. Fifth Amendment. People self-identified themselves to me tonight as Nazis in the bar. I have it on film. It's a hate crime what happened to me tonight and 2 weeks ago. Fourth Amendment rights, search and seizure. I claim my Fourth Amendment rights to not be searched unlawfully. Everybody comes on.
Yes, sir.
I claim my Fourth Amendment rights to not be searched unlawfully. I claim my Ninth Amendment rights to not be unlawfully persecuted for a crime of no designation, disorderly conduct being something I am unguilty of. I claim my Fourth Amendment rights to not be searched and seized on no probable cause. I claim my Fourth Amendment rights to not be searched and seized. Please do not touch my ring.
Have to come off.
Okay. I claim my Fourth Amendment rights to not be unlawful. Hey, you just touched my penis. Please don't do that.
No, I didn't.
I'm not transgender, non-binary. I don't want to be searched by a man. I'm transgender, non-binary, and I don't want to be searched by a man. I claim my Fourth Amendment rights. Like stop and frisk when I have committed no crime. When I am the victim of assault, I claim my Fourth Amendment rights to not be searched. Thank you. These are Nerf guns, just in case you worry that they're bullets. Those are Nerf bullets.
Thank you for letting
They
me.
are fake and they are a toy.
Thank you for
This is
letting
my
us
belt
know.
buckle and my Nerf bullets.
I appreciate that.
Please don't take them from me. The flash ring means a lot to me. It's very valuable. Please, I don't want to have nerve damage from your house. Please.
You're not gonna get nerve damage from the cops if you stay still. You'll be fine. Short ride.
Just let me sit with my hands facing out so I don't get nerve damage. I'm a musician, so my nerves and my hands are important to me. Please don't hurt them. Please, I beg you.
Try to take them off as fast as we can when we get back to the police
As soon
station.
as we get there,
It's just a
as soon
short
as we
ride.
come out.
It'll be a very short ride.
Whatever you need.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
I also have all your property I brought. Okay, so we'll make sure it's going with you. I got it.
Please don't touch it.
Okay.
None of it is illegal in any capacity. I really appreciate if you can touch it. All from my religion, Judaism.
Ezra only was fined $500 for that whole thing. So there's this guy called Ignatius, and Ignatius was there in Hawaii with Dakota and Ezra and witnessed a lot of things and spoke to media about it. And I want to tell you what Ignatius said because it's pretty disturbing. This is also when Ezra starts convincing, which he didn't convince, he essentially pressured Tokata into changing her name to Gibson, which Tokata Iron Eyes is a cool name. All right. I'm not saying Gibson is a bad name, but come on. Also, Gibson was the family dog's nickname, according to Tokata's mom. So there's something about that that makes me feel like, why are you trying to change her name to that? And so Ignatius, who was there, this is what Ignatius said about this. Tokata was very clear with me. She said, I love going by the name Tokata, and I think it's a beautiful name. And Ezra said, no, no, no. You like going by Gibson now. Tokata's only reaction was deflated silence. Ignatius said. Ezra was arrested again on April 19th, this time for throwing a chair at a woman and cutting her head open, leaving like a huge gash. Well, I think it was half an inch cut on her forehead. This couple says that they allowed Ezra and Tokata to stay with them, and then all of a sudden Ezra burst into their room and said, quote, "I will bury you and your slut wife," and then threw a chair at the wife. They say that Ezra also stole a passport and a wallet containing a social security card, a driver's license, and bank cards. Ezra was charged with second-degree assault, but the couple ultimately dropped the petition. Ezra and Takata end up leaving Hawaii, and guess who Ezra takes with him as well? Anna Rosa. She is one of the wives in that polycule that they were staying with. Yes. And she brought her 3 children with her who are all under the age of 5. And they all go back to the farm in Vermont, the mountain. This is where the kids get exposed to the guns and the weed. Someone who visited the farm, aka the mountain, said that they, quote, saw Miller blow marijuana smoke in the baby's face and use their arm to waft more smoke in the baby's direction. Ignatius also talks about this gross incident where he was renovating this church with his wife, and that Ezra and Takata came to visit. And then on the way out, Ezra and Takata started sloppily kissing in the church's doorway, and how Ezra was like looming very tall over Takata and then said, quote, "No abuse without love." Okay. Takata denies that this happened. Now it's May 2022, and Takata's parents, they finally find out where she is because they have not known where she is when she said she was leaving to go be with someone else. And then she lied and she ended up going to be with Ezra. Like, she was 18. They didn't know where she was. They couldn't legally do anything. So they were just like, they felt their hands were tied. Well, in May of 2022, they find out that people are saying that Takata and Ezra are in Los Angeles. So they go to Los Angeles to try to get Takata back. They find Takata in LA, but the problem is she doesn't want to come. And not only that, Ezra is also like facilitating their getaway in this Uber. And so then this altercation occurs where the parents are like trying to force the door open and get Takata out of the car, but then the car's trying to drive off and they're trying to speed up. And it ends up with Takata's mom screaming, "Ezra Miller, stop assaulting me," because she says he slammed the door on her arms, the car door, and so badly that she ended up having to get treated at an urgent care. And then the Uber sped off with Takata inside, and her parents were like, "We're never going to see her again. Like, there's no way we can find her." And so that's when they decided in June of 2022 to file a restraining order against Ezra to protect their daughter Takata, saying that she has been groomed since she was 12 years old. And they mentioned all these things that I told you about, the people seeing them in bed together when she was 14, all of these other instances of like grooming and alleged abuse and the overdose and all those things that I told you about were in this order that they filed in June of 2022. Shortly after that, there was another protection order that was filed by, remember when I told you about the 11-year-old kid that Ezra was being inappropriate with and yelling at the mom, saying she's a vampire and not to use the word tribe and all of that? Yes. She also filed a protective order against Ezra because Ezra had been trying to contact her now 12-year-old again. On June 4th, Ezra showed up to that 11-year-old, well, now the kid was 12 years old's home, okay, in, quote, a cowboy hat and boots, asking to buy horses for the 12-year-old. What a creep, showing up with the cow. I want to buy them a horse. Anyway, very bizarre, very bizarre. So freaking weird. So that's 2 protective orders filed against Ezra in June of 2022. And so now, as you can imagine, there's a lot of media attention because there are these arrests in March and April in Hawaii, these protective orders, that video all the way from 2020 of Ezra choking a fan. All these things are coming out about these underage kids and grooming, and there's a cult and what the hell's going on. And remember, there's a new oh, and I didn't mention this, there's a new Flash movie that's set to come out a year from when this is occurring, which is June 2023. And this is all happening right now in June 2022. So in August, a month later, Ezra comes out with a statement because there's this emergency meeting with like Warner Brothers, and they're like, what should we do? They're like, oh, we spent too much money. It's like $200 million for the movie. They're like, we can't cancel it. We can't cut Ezra out of the movie with editing because apparently Ezra's in like every scene. Like the Flash character is in like so many scenes that they can't edit the scene out. They can't refilm it. It costs too much money. So they're hoping an apology and waiting and letting it die down until June 2023, and then limiting Ezra's time at the premiere will let it blow over because they really can't afford to do anything else apparently. So August 15th, 2022, Ezra comes out with a statement, and this is what it says. It says, I now understand that I am suffering complex mental health issues and have begun ongoing treatment. I want to apologize to everyone that I have alarmed and upset with my past behavior. I'm committed to doing the necessary work to get back to a healthy, safe, and productive stage in my life. A lot of the charges against Ezra got dropped. There was this whole thing that happened with the restraining order against him from Tokata's family, where they were doing it within the tribal law on the reservation. They couldn't find Ezra to serve Ezra, and then they just felt like they really couldn't go too far with it, and the parents were somehow convinced that really the fight was too big and they didn't stand a chance with their law against this rich, powerful actor, and so they ended up withdrawing the order. As for the other protective order, that one was to stay in effect until June of 2023, which is when the premiere for The Flash came out. So that came and went. And by the way, in 2023, in that premiere, Ezra Miller was there, but it was very quick. It seems like things died down until 2025 when Ezra came back to the Cannes Film Festival and had this long hair and this totally different look. And this was like, oh my God, is Ezra coming back? And then Ezra did an interview, a video interview talking about the director that movie he made with the crossbow where there's something wrong with Kevin, or no, it's called We Need to Talk About Kevin. And that's when Ezra did that interview talking about a potential comeback.
Tentative. I'd say on tentative grounds. I came to Cannes to support one of my closest friends in the world, who's Lynn Ramsey, who I think is one of the greatest living filmmakers. I'm working with her again. That will likely be the first thing I do, is a film that her and I are writing together. If there's anything I really still believe in my life, it's devotion to one's people, to one's loved ones, to one's friends, to one's comrades. If you've been in the woods for 3 years, I do not recommend going straight to Cannes, where every photographer and every weirdo, every rich genocidal freak be there. You know what I mean? Like, it's not an easy re-entry and lamentation for a lot of things that I did and for a lot of things that happened in that time. But I'm really, really grateful for the lessons that came with that abyss.
And that is the latest on the situation. I am very curious to know what you guys think. Do you guys think this was actually a cult, or do you think it's just cult allegations? Okay. To me, I think the shit with the minors is obviously not cool and very fucked up and illegal. I think it's pretty sad that it was just protective orders from parents. There was no actual legal stuff involved. Everything that was done seemed to be dropped or let go. Nothing really came of it. And maybe Ezra Miller is making a comeback and will be in a movie theater near you. I don't know. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.